Okay, will the AFL ever take games to the USA? We've seen the success the NRL's done with their Vegas experiment. That's going to run for a minimum of 5 years. The city of Las Vegas and their Chamber of Commerce wants the NRL to continue to go to Vegas after the 5 year plan. And Allegiant Stadium works for rugby league. Admittedly, the playing surface is a little bit of a slightly smaller dimension than an NRL standard playing surface, but it can work. The AFL, that's where their issue lies. It's not with the fact that they haven't got, a very competitive, fun league to watch. It is. Aussie rules is a brilliant sport. I love it. Right? That's not a problem. The broadcasting is not a problem because you've got Fox Sports in the US and you've got Fox Sports in Australia, and they have a good working relationship, as proven with the NRL in the last couple of seasons. They got Mason Cox, an American who was an NCAA basketball player who went to the AFL Combine in the US, was picked up, played a couple of seasons in the VFL to learn his trade, and now is a big part of the Collingwood Magpies and is a very, very good player. He's one of the tallest players in the league. And he is a marketable asset. And not only that, he's appeared multiple times on the Pat McAfee show. So the American sports audience will know who Mason Cox is. A huge proportion of them will, who follow Pat McAfee with the Pat McAfee show, his podcast, and of course his time on ESPN. So it's not as if they haven't got a marketable asset. That's a household name in Australia and is reasonably well known now in the US. It's not as if they don't have US viewers, because following the COVID shutdown, the NRL was first, the AFL was second in resuming play, and a lot of North Americans watched both the NRL and the AFL, which is part of the reason why the NRL now plays games in Vegas. What is going to be interesting is finding a facility to play games in, and I think this is the massive stumbling block. The NRL went through a list of cities and states, California, Oregon, Washington and Nevada. Even Arizona. They looked at various cities like Phoenix and San Diego and Los Angeles and the Bay Area, Portland, Seattle, and they settled on Vegas. They settled on Vegas for a multitude of reasons, but they settled on Las Vegas because after fellow Americans, the two countries which have the most tourists going to Vegas is the UK and Australia. And that's borne out with the fans coming over, from the Super League fans coming over last year and this year, and of course the Aussies and Kiwis coming over as well in large numbers. And the city of Las Vegas is, well, that's 80 to 100 million US dollars in revenue the city is just made out of the Aussie and British fans going over. So they want to extend the 5 year deal that the NRL has in place with Allegiant Stadium and the city. And so it's doable. However, they need basically an international test cricket pitch, because the AFL uses the MCG for its grand final, the Sydney Cricket Ground for the Sydney Swans. You can see where I'm going here. They use cricket facilities because that's the same dimensions as an AFL oval, basically. In the summer you play cricket, in the winter you play Aussie rules, and that's where cricket clubs made their money from in the off-season. AFL exists, much like association football and rugby union, rugby league sort of exist in part, historically, is cricket teams wanted to keep their players fit in the winter, and so they let them play football, rugby union and rugby league. Hence why those sports actually got a good start up, is cricket clubs were part of the founding fathers of football clubs, ironically, and rugby clubs, and rugby union and rugby league clubs. Now, the AFL, as I say, finding a facility is going to be the issue. I don't think marketing the game is going to be a problem. The NRL has proven you can do that. The media rights and the broadcaster will not be an issue. The Pat McAfee show, I mean, look, they've interviewed Mason Cox multiple times, and they do regularly mention the AFL on his podcast show, the Pat McAfee show. So again, that's already in the American consciousness. They've already discussed it at length. And following COVID, the viewership of AFL and NRL in the US skyrocketed because sports fans wanted things to do. The North American major leagues were suspended and fans were bored. And then the NRL starts up at the end of May, on May 28th. And then a week or so later, the AFL started up. And then the rest is history, with the NRL now playing games in Vegas. But as I say, it's finding a facility that's going to be the stumbling block. I have no doubt the AFL will eventually take games to the US. It's just finding a facility. And it will be preferable to have it on the West Coast for the Australian domestic TV audience. And so we'll have to see what happens with Major League Cricket long term and whether that actually becomes a success, because there's a potential to share facilities there. The only other option I can think they could have is finding a baseball stadium and trying to convert a baseball stadium and configure it so you can play AFL. Maybe like something like the Oakland Coliseum at a push, a stadium like that which is a multi-use stadium, because quite frankly there's not a lot of cricket pitches in the US, and as I say, unless Major League Cricket can start to become a real moneymaker and a success at some point, I cannot see how the facilities can be up to AFL first grade standard to be used. And that is going to be the stumbling block. As I say, I have no doubt at some point the AFL will take games to the US. It's finding a stadium or a facility where they can play those games and play them on a decent enough playing surface that the quality of play is not impacted. And so I think that's going to be the sticking point. Other than that, they've got the same solid basis as the NRL had before they went to Vegas. There is viewership in the US. There is clearly interest there. And the NRL's viewership back in Australia has actually gone up as a result of the Vegas games. Their revenues have gone up as a result of the Vegas games. And the AFL will be looking at that going, they're now making more money than they ever have. They're still making less money than the AFL, but they're starting to make better profits, better viewership figures, growing interest, in investment back in the grassroots, potential future investment opportunities. So we'll see what the AFL does, and we'll see if they can, because they've dropped hints. This is the thing, they have been dropping hints that they're considering it. It's finding a facility. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if they go through the same process of finding a host city and finding facilities in said city to play games. But they've got Mason Cox, a very marketable asset. There is interest in the US. There's a good media relationship between Fox Sports in Australia and Fox Sports in the US, as proven by the NRL. And you've got 18 teams in the AFL that are quite valuable, actually. The Gold Coast Suns is the least valuable team, is still more valuable than the most valuable NRL team, which is the Broncos. So they've got teams with value. They have large fan bases. They have a very lucrative TV deal. Whether we can agree with their TV rights right now for this season onwards, with the Saturday games being behind a paywall, is another thing. It's finding a facility. But I have no doubt that at some point within the next decade we will see AFL games in North America as well. But place your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll be very interested to hear from AFL fans, both from Australia and North America, and even from the UK for that matter, what they make of the potential of the AFL going to the US to play games. And will it work? Could it work? That's another topic. But for me, for now, thank you very much for watching. I'll be very interested to hear and read, should I say, the comments in the comment section below. But for me, for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.